Hey guys, so recently I've been wanting to build my own AI chatbot. So, like most people, the first thing I did was head over to YouTube and search how to create a chatbot. I didn't actually add front end, back end, Python or LangChain or any specific domain, just these four words to see what a complete beginner like me would find. I watched the first five videos that showed up, and in this video, I want to walk you through what I learned from each one, what I liked, what I think they may have missed, and whether they actually help me understand how chatbots are built. So the first video was all about building a chatbot without writing any code. The focus wasn't really on how chatbots work under the hood, it was more about getting a chatbot running as quickly as possible using some visual platform. The first thing I realized is that building a chatbot isn't just about connecting an AI model and asking it questions. Before the AI even comes into picture, you have to design the entire conversation flow first. That means deciding what the chatbot says first, what questions it asks the user, how it stores those responses, and what should happen next depending on the user's answers. It's almost like creating a flow chart where every possible conversation has already been planned out beforehand. The next thing I learned was the importance of a knowledge base. A chatbot doesn't magically know everything about your business. You have to provide it with some sort of information by connecting your website or uploading documents like PDFs or adding FAQs or even linking your sitemap. That way, instead of generating some random answers, the AI responds using information that's actually relevant to your company or your product via those FAQs and PDFs that you uploaded. Now, another interesting takeaway was that choosing the right AI model actually matters. So, like the video compared different models like Claude or ChatGPT, Gemini, explaining each one has its own strengths. Some models are faster, some are more creative, and others are more cost effective. So the right choice depends on what you're trying to build. And finally, once the chatbot is working, the process doesn't stop there. You can customize how it looks, changing its colors, branding, collect user feedback, test the conversations, and then embed the chatbot directly into your website with some just small snippet of code if that's required at all. So overall, the video gave me a really good introduction to what goes into building a no code AI chatbot. It showed me that even without programming, there's still quite a bit of planning involved, from designing conversations to preparing the AI chatbot's knowledge base before it's ready for the users. Now, the second video took a completely different approach. Unlike the first video, which relied on no code platform, this one actually showed how to build a chatbot entirely in Python using OpenAI's API. The first thing I learned was how a chatbot actually communicates with an LLM. Before you can ask the model anything, you need to install the OpenAI Python package. After that, you generate an API key and then authenticate your application so that it can send requests to the model. Now, once that is set up, everything from here on is pretty straightforward. Every message the user types is sent to the LLM as a prompt. The model processes that prompt, generates a response, and then the chatbot simply displays that response back to the user. But what surprised me here was how little code was actually required for this. The entire chatbot revolved around a small function that accepts the user's prompt. It sends the it sends it to the OpenAI API, receives the generated response, and returns it back to the application. Now, the final piece was wrapping everything inside a simple loop. Instead of responding just once, the chatbot continuously accepts user input and sends it to the model, displays the response, and repeats the process until the user types something like quit or exit. Now, by the end of that video, I realized that building a basic AI chatbot is much simpler than I had expected. With just a few lines of Python code and access to an LLM through an API, you can have a fully functional conversational chatbot up and running in just a few minutes. The third video again focused on building a chatbot without writing any code, but this time using Zapier chatbots. What stood out to me was that this video wasn't just about creating a chatbot, it was about creating one that actually behaves like a professional AI assistant. It spent much more time explaining how to define the chatbot's behavior rather than simply getting it up and running. So, one of the first things I learned here was that a chatbot needs more than just a name. You have to define its objective, its personality, the tone it should use, and the rules it should follow while answering users' questions. In other words, you're teaching the chatbot or the model how it should communicate, not just what it should say. Now, another thing I found interesting was how it built the chatbot's knowledge base. Instead of relying solely on the AI model's existing knowledge, it connected the chatbot to websites, Google Docs, FAQs, and other documents. One feature I really liked was that these data sources could automatically stay up to date, meaning the chatbot's knowledge could be refreshed whenever the source content changed. The video also introduced some practical business features. For example, if the chatbot couldn't answer a customer's question, it could collect their contact information for follow up. So that means the chatbot isn't just answering questions, it can also help generate leads and capture potential customers. And one last thing the video showed was how everything comes up together. Once the chatbot is configured, you can customize its appearance, test its responses, embed it uh, directly into a website, and even monitor how users interacted with using analytics. Overall, this video showed me that building a chatbot isn't just about generating AI responses, it's also about giving the chatbot a clear identity, connecting it to the right information, and continuously improving it based on how real users interact with it. Now, this is where things started getting really interesting. Up until this point, most of the videos had been showing me how to build a AI chatbot. But this one took a step back and answered a much more important question. Why do we even need something like LangChain? And honestly, this was probably my favorite video so far because it finally started connecting all the dots. The first thing I learned was that an LLM and an AI agent aren't the same thing. An LLM is great at generating text, but that's pretty much all it does. It doesn't remember previous conversations, it can't search your documents, it can't call APIs, and it definitely can't perform actions on its own. So that's where LangChain comes in. Instead of being another AI model, LangChain is a framework that helps connect an LLM with everything else it needs. Things like memory, prompt templates, external knowledge, vector databases, APIs, tools, and even other AI models. The video then broke these components down one by one, which made everything much easier to understand. I finally understood what conversation memory actually does, why prompt templates are useful, how retrieval augmented generation, or RAG as we call it, fits into the picture, and how all of these pieces work together to build a chatbot that can actually solve real world problems instead of just answering random questions. What I also liked about this, it wasn't just theory. The instructor actually showed how to install LangChain, connect it to different language models, create reusable prompts, chain multiple components together, add memory, connect a knowledge base using RAG, and finally build a chatbot that uses all of these components together in one piece. And I think that was the biggest takeaway for me. This was the first video that actually stopped feeling like here's some code to copy. I genuinely loved it, and instead it explained why more AI chatbots are built the way they are. By the end of it, I wasn't just learning how to build a chatbot anymore. I was starting to understand the architecture behind AI applications. Finally, in the fifth video, it tied everything together, the several concepts that previous videos only briefly touched on. So instead of building a chatbot that relies only on AI model, it showed how to build one that can actually answer the questions based on your own data. The biggest takeaway here was understanding RAG, or Retrieval Augmented Generation. Instead of expecting the LLM to know everything, the chatbot first searches your documents. It retrieves the most relevant information and then uses that context to generate an accurate response. I also learned how a simple chatbot can be built using Streamlit. for the interface, and LangChain to connect it to our LLM. The most interesting part here was connecting the chatbot to a PDF. The document is split into smaller chunks, converted into vector embeddings, stored in a database, and only the relevant pieces are retrieved whenever the user asks a question. So here I understood why RAG is such a popular approach for production ready AI chatbots. It keeps the responses grounded in your own data, stays up to date, and without retraining the model. So, in these 5 videos, there are a few things that I noticed while watching all of them, and most of them did a great job of showing how to build something quickly, a chatbot, but very few explained why certain technologies were even being used. Like certain questions that I have, like why do we even need embeddings? What exactly is RAG, or retrieval augmented generation? What does it actually do? Why do vector databases even exist? What is it used for? When do we actually need LangChain? What are the differences between calling an LLM directly and building an AI agent? And how does a chatbot actually remember previous conversations? So these are the kinds of questions that I still had even after watching the video. And my final takeaway would be, after I learned from these videos, is building a chatbot isn't just about connecting an AI model to a chat window. A simple chatbot can be built in just a few minutes, but building a chatbot that's actually useful, one that remembers the conversations, understands your data, retrieves accurate information, performs those actions, and scales to a real world applications, which is a completely different challenge. And that's exactly the journey I want to explore next. So, if you're also starting from scratch and want to understand what's really happening behind the scenes instead of just copying code, stick around because that's what this series is going to be about.